Bitcoin, Ethereum, you know the drill. Lost it all but came back with the skill.
Hello everyone, welcome to your channel Holding Crypto. It's Wednesday, March 19th, 2025, and it's currently 12:25 p.m. We're obviously going to take stock of the Bitcoin situation. We're going to look at altcoins together, the news, and the latest developments. We're going to look at the strategy to adopt at this time, especially given the very delicate period. We're going to look together at what strategy is best to adopt. Come on, let's settle in and start this video with this crypto map that's picking up some color. We're seeing some great performances from the crypto hype, with Casper waking up. We're going to look at all of this together, but let's start with the part that will directly impact us today, the macroeconomic aspect, of course. So, as you know, there are quite a few things happening today. It's nothing new. I've been talking about it for a while. But today, we'll have crude oil inventories at 2:30 p.m. and especially from 7 p.m., the FOMC economic projections, the FOMC press release, the Fed's interest rate decision, and the FOMC press conference. So this is extremely important from a macroeconomic perspective because, in fact, I already spoke to you a little about it last night. But indeed, it will be today that our friend Jerome Powell will inform us about his monetary policy. Is he considering several rate cuts for 2025 or none at all? If so, perhaps when? And is precisely all this information that the market is currently waiting for. We know that as early as March, we won't have any rate cuts. We know this because it's already been written, meaning that the consensus was that there would be no rate cut. You see, the previous 4.5%, the forecast 4.5%. So normally there won't be a rate cut unless there's a surprise. So we know this is extremely important. If our friend Jerome Powell informs us that inflation is rising again and he doesn't plan to cut rates, it might still be poorly received by cryptocurrencies and even traditional markets because it would indeed mean that inflation is regaining a lot of strength and that it still needs to be brought under control. On the other hand, if he tells us that inflation remains perfectly measured and that everything is under control, perhaps he would consider rate cuts for 2025. That could indeed be very, very interesting. So in short, big news is expected this afternoon. It'll be late afternoon, starting around 7 p.m. So of course we'll be monitoring all of this very closely in terms of macroeconomic information. We'll start with the liquidity map, and we see that we still have this liquidity zone to the north. However, we have a peak, it should be noted. We still have a peak at $80,000, exactly at $80,050. We have another small one here at $81,050. We looked for the one at $81,850. So for now, we've looked for these areas. Now to the north, we have a small pocket between $85,300 and $86,250. Regarding the fear and greed index, we're still in a fear zone again. So what does that mean? It simply means that investors are still afraid to invest in risky assets. Generally speaking, as we know, it's a pretty good sign. I'm not going to explain how this indicator works again. I've already explained it quite a bit, but the more you're in the red, generally speaking, the better. Anyway, let's not kid ourselves, but when you invest, the rule is always simple. It will never change. You buy when things fall and sell when they rise. So, in fact, the more you're in the red, generally speaking, it means that things have fallen. So it's true that, in general, this can be taken as a very interesting indicator. And especially here, while we're in the red-orange zone, we could find ourselves in areas that could offer great opportunities. As for Bitcoin, we see that for the moment, we're continuing to stagnate. Anyway, that's what I've been telling you for the past 2 or 3 days. Now, don't expect anything. So, indeed, for the moment, until we receive the information I mentioned, which will be released this afternoon and this evening, we won't have a real direction for Bitcoin. So as you can see, we're still stuck between two key levels. We're still stuck between the support at $81,533 and the resistance at $85,016. So that is to say, we're operating in a situation that is in a range of about $3,000, $4,000. So if you will, it's here. So our configuration is located here like this, and we're operating there. Quite simply, we're operating in this zone. And so indeed, for the moment, we don't yet know which way we're going to break. No decision has been made on the Bitcoin side, so for the moment it's true that it's very delicate. It's true that even if no decision has been made, precisely in this case, we're continuing our trend. And so indeed, in the medium term, since January, our Bitcoin has obviously been on a downward trend. I say since January because from a long-term perspective, that's not the case at all. But in any case, for now, we're still in this downtrend. And for now, as long as we don't manage to break this downtrend, we've tried to do so several times. So far, it's been nothing but failure. As long as we don't try to do it again, well, we'll remain in this downtrend. So what's interesting is that right now, we're really starting to consolidate just below the moving average ribbon area. So that's interesting. We're currently below an extremely important area. As you can see, we have the middle of the Bollinger Bands. We have the 200 period moving average. We have the 20 period moving average, 3 huge resistances, and just above, we have the famous resistance level at 86,322. So, in fact, that makes 4 resistance levels above our heads. So that's why for now we're stuck. Above our heads we have a concrete wall. Know that we have nothing to break this wall with right now. We have a concrete wall. If we want to break it, we can punch it, just so you know. So for now, it's not working. For now, it's a wall that's holding. It's solid. It's reinforced concrete. But if we ever break through this concrete wall, then in that case, it could be really very interesting. I remind you that the goal would be to find the downtrend line. So today, we are currently at 89,435 on the side of this line. I remind you that's the line. As long as we're below this line, well, we're continuing the downtrend. So that would already be our target. And if we break this line, I remind you that the goal would be to reach the bottom of the old range, $92,500, which incidentally corresponds, it should be noted, to the top of the Bollinger Bands, and it also corresponds to the top of the moving average band. So indeed, we know that if we break above the moving average band and re-enter this range from the bottom, we could very quickly be propelled to the top of the range, and that top of the range is located at $102,000. So the door to $102,000 isn't closed. That door isn't closed at all. So yes, for now it's difficult to access. That's clear and simple. It's difficult to access, but clearly the door isn't closed. Given that, for now, we're just consolidating just below. We don't yet know if we'll succeed in breaking all that, but we are consolidating. And casually, well, if we manage to break all that, it could be really very interesting. Now, once again, we still have to remain very cautious because, of course, we're still in a downtrend. And for the moment, as long as we don't validate this trend, Bitcoin will obviously have a tendency to continue. So, continue the decline until proven otherwise. So, in terms of support, we have 81,533, 79,669, and 77,980. And if we break this famous key support level, be careful, because that means we've broken the last low. And then we could make a new low, so that wouldn't be a good sign at all. So pay attention to that, and pay attention to the information that will be given to us this evening from the Fed with Jerome Powell. We'll obviously be monitoring all of this in detail. As for Bitcoin, the situation hasn't changed much for several days, but we still have, and it's important to note this is what's important, we still have this very nice bullish divergence. For now, it's still there. So as long as we're in this bullish divergence, we still have hope that Bitcoin will regain strength. But once again, that will depend on tonight's news. Okay, let's take this opportunity to check what's happening with our altcoins. And so, as we discussed earlier, I suggest we analyze Polkadot. Polkadot, which is also, of course, in a bearish configuration. On that, from a medium-term perspective, we can't deny it at all. Frankly, it would be a lie to say that Polkadot is bullish. Right now, in the medium term, we're clearly bearish, we're clearly stuck. But that's not serious, it's not serious at all. Because look, if we take a slightly longer term view this time, well, what do we have? We actually have a Polkadot that has returned to retest its bear market range bottom. That is to say, between May 2022 and today, we're actually in a huge consolidation. As you can see here, we're in a lateralizing structure, and we can't seem to break out of this structure. So, I'll go into detail. On the Polkadot side, in reality, it's true that this could be considered a very good opportunity. There are two schools of thought, either on the Polkadot side right now, we're investing at the bottom to play the bottom of the range, or unfortunately we'll wait for this range to be broken. Indeed, we could see another drop. Whatever happens, we're currently at a real range bottom. So, the 3.754 is an important range bottom, a major key support area that absolutely must not be broken in the long term. As you can see, we've had this support for several years. It's still a historical support. So, a big support area. Now, we see that we're seeing a rebound off it. Fortunately, we're clearly not out of the woods yet. Be careful, we're bouncing off it. But for now, we absolutely must get back above $5.253. And above all, we'll need to reclaim $6.933 here too. Why not say that yes, we're reversing the trend and that we'd like to reach the top of the range again? Let me remind you of the rule. But when you're in a range, as long as you're inside it, so when you're at the bottom, the goal is to reach the top. And when you're at the top, unless you break through the top, but then at no point is there a breakout, there's an attempt, but you haven't broken through. So when you're at the top, the goal is to reach the bottom. When you're at the bottom, you're looking for the top. When you're at the top, you try to break through, but you can't. So you go looking for the bottom. When you're at the bottom, you try to break through, but you can't, so you go looking for the top. And so on. This is what we call range trading. So that indeed is a way of trading. In any case, you might think this could be a great opportunity. So yes, on the Polkadot side, indeed, if this bottom of the range holds, well, indeed, it could really be seen as a great opportunity. So as I was talking about earlier in the introduction to the video, well, I was talking about a strategy to adopt. So there's a strategy when you're in delicate situations like the one we're currently in. So I'm going to use Bitcoin as an example, but it works for any cryptocurrency. So that's why I talk about it at the end of the video. It's because, in fact, you can use this strategy on all cryptocurrencies. Basically, the strategy is simple. You should never invest all that liquidity. That is to say, let's imagine you have $500 to invest. Well, imagine that you think we're really in a great opportunity, in a great zone, and according to you, this zone will absolutely hold. Well, you shouldn't put $500 on the position outright. You should perhaps put, for example, $150 on it. That way, if we were right, well, then that's very good. These $150 will start to grow. If, unfortunately, we were wrong, well, if we fall, it allows us to always have a little liquidity to buy back the losses. And so that's why, in general, what we do is invest in stages. That is to say, we invest, for example, $150 in the current position. If we fall, we can put another $150 back in. If we fall again, we can put a little back in. And if we ever recover, well, it's the same here. We can put a little back in. The goal is always to try to maintain a little liquidity, precisely to try to accept the drops and be able to trade them better. Because if we invest one shot in positions, unfortunately afterward we have nothing left. And when we see drops like the ones we experienced here, we would have been happy to have some liquidity, precisely to try to buy back the deep market that's here. So there you have it. This is definitely a strategy to keep in mind when there are drops and we want to buy back the drops. You must always keep this strategy in mind. So I won't go into detail here. Normally, I'll obviously make a complete training video on this strategy later with all the details. Here, I'll really explain this approach to you in a very simple and macro way. This way, you'll already have some initial insights. But in any case, you really need to keep this strategy in mind to truly trade this type of scenario. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, comment, and share as much as possible. Subscribe to the YouTube channel to receive daily videos about Bitcoin and altcoins. Have a great day and see you later.
Bitcoin, Ethereum, you know the drill. Lost it all but came back with the skill.